Hello, my name is Betty. I'm a 35-year-old corporate professional who has been married to Scott for 4 years. Scott, 2 years my senior, works at a company affiliated with mine. From the start of our marriage, we've been living with his parents in a dual family home setup. Scott, the younger of two brothers, has an older brother named Walter. Before Scott and I got married, Walter, along with his parents, were the main residents of the home. Walter's wife, Judy, known for her chatty personality and competitive nature, often clashed with her strong-willed mother-in-law. Eventually, the constant family disagreements led Walter and his dad to move out. Despite having lived alone since he started his career, Scott and I had never really thought about living apart from his parents. So it was quite a surprise when Scott's mom announced that we would be moving in with them right after our wedding. I had assumed we would continue living in my apartment until we were ready to start a family, since it was convenient for my work commute. However, it seemed that staying together was a non-negotiable part of my new family's tradition. Though initially hesitant, we figured that the commute wouldn't change much whether we stayed at Scott's apartment or moved into his parents' home. Plus, the family home, built by Scott's grandfather, included a main house and a guest house, offering plenty of privacy. With some reluctance, we agreed to move in. However, I soon began to regret our decision. Scott's mother, in her mid-60s, started to complain of back pain and dizziness, which meant all the household chores, from cleaning to laundry and shopping, fell increasingly on my shoulders. Balancing these tasks with a full-time job and sharing chores with Scott barely kept both our lives and his parents' household manageable. Then an unexpected financial strain appeared. The guest house needed serious renovations. Although it seemed fine from the outside, it required more than just minor repairs once you stepped inside. The bathroom, kitchen, roof, and floors all showed significant wear and tear. Naturally, we committed to covering the renovation costs. What caught us off guard was when my mother-in-law demanded that the main house be renovated too, after seeing the improvements to the guest house. It was overwhelming to think about fixing up our living space while also having to upgrade theirs, but it seemed we had little choice. However, we simply couldn't afford to take on everything at once. Why is Betty working, then, to support us, her in-laws? My mother-in-law challenged, adding, "Scott, we blessed you with marriage. You should serve us in return." So it wasn't just the renovations they expected. They now wanted upscale furniture and modern appliances, arguing that the refurbished rooms warranted nothing but the best. On top of that, they expected us to foot the bill for everything, from groceries to other household necessities. Due to these demands, Scott and I found it nearly impossible to save even a small amount of money each month. As we neared our third anniversary, my brother-in-law Walter and his wife Judy suddenly announced a major change. "We're moving back in, and you need to move out," Judy explained. Walter had been laid off, although he actually had the option to stay. He chose to leave to help a coworker with children keep his job, despite having 2-year-old twins themselves. Walter was considered more capable due to his prestigious university education. Faced with this ultimatum, Scott and I spent hours discussing it with my in-laws and trying to negotiate a solution, but it was futile. Eventually, we gave in. "Fine, we'll move out this week," I conceded. It was a tough pill to swallow, but we had no other choice. "We've learned a lot about family from you," I said to my mother-in-law and father-in-law, trying to keep my tone light. "It's time to put that wisdom into practice, right, Scott?" I added, glancing at my husband, who responded with a chuckle. "Yeah, just like Betty said, we're happy to do it. Case closed," he affirmed. With that, Scott and I turned our backs on our chuckling in-laws and made our way to start packing up the guest house. Within 3 weeks, we had the movers lined up and relocated without a moment to spare. Opting for the full packing service due to our tight schedule, we timed our move during my in-laws' regular lunch at karaoke with their friends to avoid any disputes over the belongings we were taking. We wrapped up all the formalities in 4 days, utilizing our paid leaves, and began our new life. However, one day I received a call from the front desk at work. Someone claiming to be family was there to see me. I had a feeling she would show up soon, but I hadn't expected her to storm in on me at work. Quickly texting Scott about the unexpected visit, I braced myself for the potential hassle. Scott responded immediately, advising that we politely request Emma to schedule a formal meeting to keep things professional and avoid any office disturbances. After relaying the message to the front desk, we managed to have our in-laws agree to leave without further incident. That evening, as Scott and I drove into the parking lot of our former residence, where his parents lived, we were met with an unexpected reception. His parents, along with Walter and his wife Judy, hurried out to greet us. To my surprise, both in-laws had one of Walter's twins strapped to their backs. As I locked the car, Walter confronted us aggressively, accusing, Hey, how dare you show up here in my parents' cars?" Scott remained calm, replying, "Your parents' cars? Which ones are those?" This only seemed to infuriate Walter further. "The cars you both drove up in, obviously," he snapped. "Well, Walter, both these cars were bought by us. Our names are on the registration certificates. Would you like to see it?" Scott offered, stepping forward. Frustrated by how our parents acted as if they owned everything, I chimed in, "We overlooked it when we all lived together, but now there's no need to lend them out. Don't forget your dad has that old minivan he used for work." Judy added, eyeing us sharply, "Who cares about that old car?" "But it's perfect for the twins, isn't it? You can fit 2 car seats," I countered, trying to inject some reason into the conversation. Our exchange seemed to make our in-laws uncomfortable, especially as Walter was chastised about the car ownership. They then shifted the topic to the furniture and appliances, accusing us of stealing them by taking them while they were away. "That's stealing, not just from the main house, but also from the guest house," Walter argued. "Yes, and Walter, and I can't live without those." Judy supported his claim. "Look, I get what you're saying. We're using the guest house anyway. But there's no reason to dip into the main house too," Scott reasoned. "Why isn't that stuff we all pitched in for?" I inquired, trying to understand their perspective. "Such arrogance." "Once you gave it, it's ours," my father-in-law asserted. "Hold on, we never gave you anything. We just lent it. There's no record of us saying we're giving it to you, and there's no transfer of ownership on paper," Scott clarified, catching both in-laws off guard. While we were living together, lending things out was just a matter of convenience. But now that we're in separate homes, it doesn't make sense to keep sharing everything, Scott explained, exchanging smiles with me. "We have our own washing machines and fridges. You don't need duplicates, do you?" they argued. "Exactly, so why would we lend them out again? Besides, stuffing everything into our new, smaller place would just make it more cramped," Scott concluded. We exchanged grins, both aware of how tightly packed our current living situation was. "True, we're pretty squeezed in as it is," I admitted. "Absolutely, it's a tight fit," Scott agreed. Judy started to say something in response, but we interjected, "Remember, it's a storage room, so it's supposed to be cramped." I chuckled, "Exactly. Until the official lease is signed, this is how it has to be." Scott added, leaving Walter and our in-laws looking utterly confused. Then Scott revealed some unexpected news. "Oh, by the way, we're moving to Philadelphia next month." He explained that we had initially been offered positions at our company's headquarters, but had turned them down because of our living situation. Now that we were free of that complication, we had accepted the transfers and received internal notifications about our new roles at the headquarters. Even better, if all goes well, we might end up working there until retirement. As it turned out, a colleague of Scott's, who was going overseas for an extended period, had a high-rise condo in Philadelphia he wanted to sell, and everything fell into place quickly. "You guys are going to live in a high-rise condo in Philadelphia." "Man, life sure does throw some curveballs," Walter remarked. "Totally. If you and the gang hadn't pushed us to move out, we wouldn't have stumbled upon this opportunity," I replied. "But how could you even afford a high-rise condo?" "That seems unreal," Judy questioned. "That's thanks to Betty's dad. He provided the down payment," Scott revealed. "Betty's dad just gave you the down payment?" Judy asked, surprised. "Yes, my sister is inheriting the family property, so he decided to help us out," I explained, glad for the unexpected support that turned our situation around. "This arrangement is sort of a trade-off." Additionally, the previous owner requested we keep his modern altar until he returned to the country. I proposed lowering the asking price in exchange, and he agreed, giving us a significant discount. However, upon hearing about the substantial discount, Judy, who was nearby, burst into tears, exclaiming, "That's so unfair. I'd rather have a high-rise condo in Philadelphia than live in Nashville." Suddenly, the in-laws, who had been silent until now, switched their tone and started praising Scott. "Well, it looks like Scott really has it together, doesn't he? Like mother, like son. Scott is following in my footsteps," they chimed in. Ignoring their comments, Scott turned to me and said, "Living in a high-rise in Philadelphia. Everyone's going to be so jealous. When are you moving? We must visit." "If we're going to Philadelphia, you should come too," I suggested. The idea seemed to intrigue them. However, the mood shifted abruptly when Walter and Judy stopped arguing and turned to confront the in-laws. "What are you talking about? Walter's being downsized, so you're going to have to support us. Plus, until I find another job, Judy will have to go back to work early from her parental leave. You'll have to take care of the household chores and the twins," they demanded. As tension mounted, Walter and Judy marched up to the in-laws, who were carrying the twins. The babies, sensing the tension, started crying, waking up the entire neighborhood. Noticing neighbors gathering at a distance from the garage, the in-laws turned red. Scott finally intervened, addressing Walter and the others. "Stop just standing there." His laughter echoed as he continued, "This is like a battle of wits between a raccoon and a fox, ha?" Turning to the bewildered faces around him, he grinned and explained, "If both couples, us and you, don't work, our family finances will collapse next month." Fuming, Judy asked what this meant. I chimed in, "Judy, you thought if Walter lost his job, it would be just an inconvenience, but it's much more. Without both couples contributing, everything falls apart." This revelation hung in the air, a stark reminder of the precarious balance our family finances rested on. When you moved into the in-laws' rental property, you thought you could just transfer the utility bills and grocery costs onto them, right? Well, our income was sustaining this household, but you can't rely on that anymore, I explained, revealing a truth that seemed to puzzle them. "Oh, and you'll also need to start contributing to the mortgage payments for the house renovations." "It's in father-in-law's name," Scott added. "Why is it in his name?" I asked, catching the in-laws off guard. Scott took over. "I initially wanted the loan in my name since I was paying for it, but Dad insisted it would be shameful not to have it in his. So we used this property as collateral. Up until now, we've been transferring money into Dad's account to cover the loan. Walter, you'll need to chip in starting next month. Of course, the in-laws and Walter were against this idea, but Scott firmly declined to continue making the payments. We're going to relinquish our claim on the inheritance. So Walter, as the one who will inherit, you'd better take good care of your parents and the family home, I told him firmly. But children are still obligated to take care of their parents, right? My mother-in-law insisted. Scott brushed off her comment. Well, considering we've been covering your living expenses and loan payments for the past 4 years, I'd say that pretty much balances out any future caregiving costs I'd have as a son, don't you think? Let's go home, love, Scott said, looking at me. Goodbye, everyone. With that, we turned to leave, ready to start anew, free from the financial burdens and expectations that had weighed us down. I doubt we'll meet again. Take care, I said, bidding farewell. The next day, Scott and I sold off the furniture and appliances we had taken from the main house, as well as 2 cars we wouldn't need anymore. When Judy texted asking for these items, I simply replied, "Why?" and then blocked her number. The special leave granted for our job transfer wasn't sufficient, so we had to use our remaining paid vacation days to complete the move. Although buying the high-rise condo would take more time, we decided to rent for the first 2 years, thankfully from an apartment owned by my boss, who generously helped us out. As the weekend arrived, bringing a much-needed calm after the whirlwind of recent events, we sat looking out at the city lights. Breaking the silence, I said, I know this has been a hassle, but thanks for sticking with me. I felt truly grateful for Scott's patience through it all. What's with the formal tone all of a sudden? Scott joked, but then his expression turned serious. When we first got married and the idea of living together came up, I should have thought things through back then. I was just happy you chose me over Walter, who was the favorite since we were kids. He continued, reflecting on our past decisions. He mused how we had mindlessly followed his parents' wishes until they instructed us to make room for Walter and his family due to the company restructuring. It struck me how they could say that after being such a burden on us financially and otherwise. Scott is not just that. I thought about how much your parents must worry about you, given your situation, he added, acknowledging the complexities of our intertwined family dynamics. We both sat there, contemplating the fresh start ahead of us, determined to make the most of our new beginning away from the demands and expectations that had once confined us. Scott shared with me that he had sent an apology email to my parents, expressing his regrets about our past challenges. Their response was unexpectedly warm. They assured us that if we committed to making our daughter happy moving forward, the past missteps could be forgiven. This encouraging reply from them made it easier to discuss financial matters, and they lent us the down payment for our new home without any complications. Scott made a heartfelt promise to do everything within his power to safeguard our life together, just the 2 of us, and hopefully our future children if we were blessed to have any. However, on the other side, my in-laws were facing their own set of struggles. Despite tapping into their retirement funds, they could barely manage the loan payments for their home renovations. With Walter's job search yielding no results, they were reliant on Judy's salary now that she was back at work. The stress was palpable, often leading to loud arguments that could be heard outside their home. A former colleague reached out to me, sharing rumors that they might skip town since they had ceased all communications with Scott and me. In a desperate attempt to reconnect, they even tried contacting my parents, but my father had promptly changed his phone number. This act, though small, was significant. It reflected his stance on setting boundaries, especially given how my in-laws had previously belittled my family and overlooked basic courtesies before our marriage. Now, with almost no way to reach us, It seemed that the way they had treated others was finally coming back to haunt them. It was a classic case of what goes around comes around, and I was reminded of the old saying that you reap what you sow.